Time for what?
Experience in college.
Time for reinforcement.
Time for liftoff!
Where nothing is impossible unless you think it is impossible.
College.
My college scholarship.
Yes. Boom.
College ran by real fast.
You hung in with the best college.
First time for everything.
Well, what are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for?
Let's do this thing.
Genius, let's do this thing!
My name is Ashley Withers, and I'm a college counselor at St. Ignatius. And I am here with my wonderful colleague, Stephanie Wong, who is also a college counselor. Today, we have a wonderful guest who is going to share with us a lot of wonderful, wonderful information about something that could be a very, very stressful, the financial aid process or the college affordability. Again, thank you so much for joining us. For now, I'm going to pass it on to my wonderful colleague, Stephanie Wong, and she is going to introduce our wonderful guest.
Thank you, Ashley. Once again, thank you so much for spending your night with us, or part of your evening with us, and learning about the financial investment in your child's or children's future. Like Ashley said, this is probably one of the more stressful and confusing elements of the college admissions process. For many families, it's just figuring out how to pay for it. College is expensive. We are here with Dino, our wonderful guest speaker, is here to point you in the right direction, where you're going to learn some terms related to financial aid, the process of applying, how to consider affordability, all good stuff. We are so blessed to have the wonderful, funny, and knowledgeable Dino. He is the Director of Financial Aid at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. So thank you, Dino, for working late, staying up late with us, and being with our community. I hope you know how much we value you and appreciate you. He has decades of experience in financial aid at various institutions. He is all about and committed to providing financial aid information to make it possible for students to attend college. So thank you, Dino. I am going to pass the mic to you.
Awesome. I'm very excited to be able to spend a little time with you this evening. I wish it was in person, but the changes that are coming at us in the financial aid world and some topics that the college counselors asked me to touch base on. And then there were some questions that came in ahead of time that they've been hearing a lot of that I put at the end of this presentation that I will try to answer. And then please, throughout this presentation, feel free to use are we using the chat or Q&A, Ashley?
The Q&A. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. Stephanie and I will be chatting away. If there's any specific questions for Dino, or if there's a question that we may get stumped on and we want Dino to speak on regarding the financial aid process, we will pass that on to him.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So here we go. Throughout this presentation, there's also some pictures. This is not what campus looks like today. I think we ended up with 8 inches of snow last night, and so which is really exciting because we haven't had too much snow. So this is not a perfect live picture, but still a good one. So here we go. Well, this is not a live one either, and this is me. So to start, though, I put some terms in that I wanted to start talking about, and these are important because as you start looking at schools, and I understand we have 9th through 11th graders, there are different terms that you want to know about. So specifically, I want to talk about need blind versus need aware. And I used to not talk about this, but I've added this into different discussions because everybody gets nervous about finances and how, can it impact the admissions process. And I think this demystifies it a little bit. So need blind admissions is essentially the applicant's ability to pay, as you can see here, will not impact the admissions decisions. So that means that you're applying for college, whether you apply for aid or not, whether you're a low-income student and it's going to be a very large scholarship. If it's a need-blind school, there's a separation between financial aid and a separation between admissions, and data isn't shared, and you know that your application is being looked at the merits of the application. That's need-blind. Need-aware is the opposite, and need-aware is where admissions can be doing an applicant review. They can say to the financial aid office, here are all the people we want, and and financial aid does a workup on everybody that has applied for financial aid, and then they give it back to admissions. And if their budget is $10 million, for example, and it costs $13 million, then admissions has to make some decisions to get down to budget. That's a perfect example of need aware, where a school can look at your finances to make a decision. Can we afford the class that we want? Can we afford a student? And so that's the big difference. And why do I highlight this so early in a presentation? Because it's so important. If you need financial aid, it's important for you to apply for financial aid and not worry about if I apply for financial aid, do I have less of a chance to get in? Well, at a need blind school, it's absolutely not going to matter. At a need aware school, it could matter. It still may not matter, but it could. But there's always a problem if you get into a school and then you say, okay, I'm going to apply for aid now, but you can't afford it. And a school says we've given out all of our money. So I always say, if you're going to apply for financial aid, if you're going to need it, make sure that you apply for it through and know the rules of the process. That's need blind versus need aware. Okay, next one I want to highlight for you is institutional methodology versus federal methodology. And specifically, this is going to be important as we get into the changes coming at students and families for the 24-25 year. Institutional methodology is a formula developed by financial aid professionals in schools in consultation, as you can see, with economists to measure a family's ability to pay for college. Many schools that are selective colleges with that give out large amounts of need-based financial aid will use institutional methodology. So we will use our own methodology to assess a family's need. Another way to look at need is the federal methodology, and you can see here it's the federal formula. The government has determined it, and you may have heard the term expected family contribution, and that is the EFC, and that has been used, and people have recognized what that is. It's a little confusing, but because it's expected family contribution, but sometimes it comes out with a number that families can't pay. So there's some changes coming at us that we'll be able to talk about. But these are two different terminologies. And again, why am I highlighting this? I'm highlighting it because we're in the middle of one of the biggest changes in federal aid that we have seen in decades. And if I know this is 9th through 11th graders, but if we have 9th through 11th graders with who have a brother or sister who might be in college already, or maybe they're a senior in college, the FAFSA for 23-24, what students are filling out now for next year, that is going to change rather significantly. And so 24-25, which I've been asked to highlight a little bit more of, is going to be a different, a reduced form with a different formula. And so trying to speak about this, and as I said, this is one of the, this has been a huge change coming at us, and we still don't have all the answers for everything. We don't have the full implementation, but so there's always a little patience with this, but more and more we'll keep reading about the changes coming for 24-25. All right. So why are we speaking about all this? And we're speaking about all this because I highlight Dartmouth, of course, because obviously this is where I work. But we're speaking about financial aid because for some people this will be a huge, important step to being able to afford college. And so we're speaking about it because at Dartmouth we're giving out over 136 million this year. Our average scholarship is 67,000. We'll have people at 5,000, 10,000. We'll have people at 75 and 80,000. We're 100% need-based aid, and we're going to come back and talk about that later. But we're giving out money based on financial numbers. And that's important because that'll be part of your homework, figuring out who is giving out need-based aid based on family finances or who's maybe giving it out on merit. And merit aid is based on a talent, and that talent could be academic. So you may have great GPA if you took standardized test scores. Could be that you have a really strong ACT or SAT. Could be that you're an amazing tuba player. That's a talent. Some schools may give an award based on musical talent or theater. So we're going to get into that. At the Ivy League schools and other selective privates, sort of the Ivy Plus, we're all 100% need-based. So we also have some different criteria that offer some guarantees. So, for example, if a family is making less than $125,000, we will cover all of tuition with a scholarship. Doesn't mean that if you make more than $125,000, doesn't mean you're not eligible for aid. It's just this is a tuition guarantee. And most importantly is there's no income cutoffs. And we will talk about that in a little bit. So I highlight this just so you can see this is one school. We're a small school. We have, I think, a wonderful aid program, and we're giving out $136 million. And so that's why financial aid and the process is going to be important. But coming at you as 9th, 10th, and 11th graders is this thing called the FAFSA Simplification Act. And the FAFSA Simplification Act, it's really, I said, this is a big change coming at us, and it's a significant overhaul, as you can see here, including how you fill out a FAFSA, a free application for federal student aid. But it's also changing the needs analysis, and it's also giving more transparency for students and requirements for us as the school. There are more disclosures that are coming out. And so hopefully that will be easier for the families when they're looking at schools or they're in a school, finding out what the actual costs are. What's the direct bill, meaning what do you have to pay the school? Or what's the indirect bill? So, for example, books. You may not pay the school for books. You may pay a bookstore for the books. So what is the actual cost or the estimated cost for that? And so that's some of the transparency rules that are coming out that schools need to do a better job of making sure. So for us, all of our costs are online, but not every school has every cost on their website, and this rule will enforce that, which is great. More transparency is always good. So with this FAFSA simplification, what is this all about? So it replaces the EFC. So if you've gone to school recently, whether it's or you have a son or daughter who's in college right now, you filled out a FAFSA in the last, I don't even know, 20 years, 25 years, you have gotten a number back after you filled out the FAFSA, and that's the EFC, the expected family contribution. Well, in 24-25, it's changing. It's now going to be called a student aid index. And that student aid index is going to be a number that's basically going to tell the school what you may qualify for federal aid. So we're going to come back to that because I want to explain how the student aid index is different. But I want to also talk about the goal of the FAFSA simplification is to expand access to federal student aid. It is to give more more grants to low-income students, and it's changed the formula up. And the government is saying that more people will qualify with the new rules that are coming out. Also, it's streamlining the FAFSA form. The FAFSA used to be 108 questions. And so you would be filling out a FAFSA. It actually used to be a lot bigger, and they've been condensing it over time. It used to be 108 questions, or it is 108 questions right now, and it's going down to, and I wrote it down here somewhere, 36 questions. So it's going to be streamlined. There's going to be dialogue, essentially electronically. You will be applying for aid, and they're going to use tax numbers from the IRS. And currently, you can request to do that, and there are going to be different mandates where if they'll be taking numbers from the IRS and filling out this application. So the goal is to streamline it, make it easier, less of a barrier for families, because we do see people across the country who are applying for financial aid and who start the form and sometimes don't finish it. And so hopefully this will make it easier, being shorter and essentially a smart form, and hopefully that will help. So that's the FAFSA Simplification Act. But the Student Aid Index, you can see here, it's replacing the EFC. This is basically the new formula. The government says will identify applicants with the greatest need. So I said earlier that students, that the goal is to expand this with the federal aid with and changing the formula up. And we're going to talk about how do you see what the formula is, and how can you tell would I qualify for a federal grant? And we can talk about ways that you'll be able to see that. Okay, so I talked about the Student Aid Index, and now I want to talk about not ruling out colleges. And for example, what do I mean by that? So the sticker price is scary. We all understand that. And for example, at Dartmouth, tuition tuition, room, board, so room and food, so housing, food, fees, books, miscellaneous, transportation is going to be around $80,000. That's a really scary number. 48% of our students are on financial aid. And as I said earlier, the average scholarship is $67,000 plus. So if you just look at the sticker price, you may say, oh my gosh, we can't touch this. And for some people, they may be able to afford. Obviously, at our college, 52% can afford it, and 48% are getting free money that doesn't have to be repaid to help pay for their education. But how do you know? So when I say don't rule it out, so what do you do? And so one of the requirements is a net price calculator. And the net price calculator is actually going to, after it's being filled out, you can actually find out how much the net price, the out-of-pocket price for you is going to be. And so we have need-blind admissions. I explained what that was earlier. We have need-based financial aid. So remember, I'm going to show you where to go to do this and to see, okay, at Dartmouth, I can put these numbers in. It's not going to ask about your SAT or ACT. It's not going to ask about your class rank if you had class rank. It's not going to ask about your GPA or what courses you took. It's going to ask about family financial numbers. There's two ways to check out this calculator, and I'm highlighting the calculator because a net price calculator, every school that receives federal funds, grants, federal grants, a Pell Grant, federal work study, a loan, a federal loan, if any school receives that, we're supposed to have a net price calculator for you to go on our website, fill in your numbers, and be able to say, okay, this is what it's going to cost me. So I say that because we have one that's 5 minutes. It literally takes, well, not even 3 minutes and 27 seconds. It's my intuition. This is a college cost estimator. It's just an estimate. So it's within a $5,000 range. This will you'll be able to fill this out really quickly. You can see it's in English. It's also in Spanish. This is on our website. I think we were the third school to go on it, and I want to say there are now over 110 schools, or 100, I don't remember the exact number, that have My Intuition calculators. So this is, but I want to highlight, this is 3 minutes and 27 seconds. It's quick, and it's just an estimate with a broad range. We also have a net price calculator on our website, and that's what it's called, net price calculator. And that's going to take you about 20 minutes to fill out. And when you fill this out, you're going to want your taxes in front of you, and you're going to want to fill this out, and it's going to say take from line 7 of your taxes. If you're on a 1040, take line 7, take that number and put it here. then we'll say line 14, take that number and put it here. So you're filling this out, and once you calculate it, it will say this is your award. And so then at least you know, not just from Dartmouth, but any of these schools that you may be looking at. Public schools in the Cal system, the UC system, the Cal State system, private schools in California, private schools in wherever, Texas, Illinois, public schools in Texas and Illinois, like wherever you're looking, not then just highlighting Dartmouth, but anywhere. If we accept federal aid, we should have a calculator. And that's going to be really important that you can check out. Now, someone will maybe say, okay, I want to go do this. You talked about different formula changes. The formulas currently are being mandated change on the federal side. Institutional side may not be changed. And so every school gets to make their own decision. So a federal a calculator may not be set yet for the 24-25 school year when the changes are coming. Why? Because many schools are still recruiting currently their 23-24 class, which is next year. So seniors now are still on these websites filling out calculators. But part of your homework will be to check out these calculators just to start getting a feel about it. And then later in the spring, we will get updates. We're hearing that this is one of the big projects that the Department of Education is working on, is to be able to get out calculators, formulas, so that we can try to give accurate estimates to all. The Dartmouth calculator, we're comfortable with our net price calculator because it's our formula. And we feel it's going to be accurate, and many schools with institutional methodology may feel the same thing. Schools that are only using federal methodology, there will be some changes. So it's asking the schools when their calculator is going to be updated. Okay, I'm going to move on because that's going to be part of your homework. All right, so. You have your homework of the net price calculator. I just want to really quickly talk about factors of need-based aid. Since I said to you what the aid, merit-based aid might be looking at, your tuba playing, your soccer playing, your SAT, your GPA. Need-based aid, I keep saying, is looking at financial numbers, and you'll see income, taxed and untaxed. I highlight that because untaxed aid is if you have a 401k and you're having 10% of your income going to a 401k, that's still considered income and in the current year, and it's untaxed. So you want to make sure you look at both of that. But income tax is paid. Assets, savings, investments, property, family size on the institutional methodology. Currently, we still look at, so family size is fine. Number in college, we still look at. So if a student, if there's a senior in high school in your family who's going to be college first year next year, and then the year after you're going to have another first year, you'll have 2 in college. At many schools with institutional methodology, we do recognize 2 in college. One big change of the federal formula is the formula is not going to recognize number in college. And one thing that I highlight here, retirement funds are not included. So even though I talked about the 401k, if you're putting money in this year, that would be included in your income. But if you had $500,000 in a 401k or a 403b, that is not included as an asset in the formula. And one other thing that is very important for families in San Francisco is the cost of living. So we do have that in institutional methodology. We do look at cost because I am always amazed how expensive things are when I'm in California, when I'm in Los Angeles, wherever I am, Washington, D.C. Things are just more expensive. So in New York City, the cost of living is part of our institutional methodology formula. Okay, couple more questions that we get a fair amount. My parents are divorced. How does that impact aid? So everybody can handle this differently. On the federal level, it's the student who is, the custodial parent, where the student is, who is the student getting the most support from. And it's only looking at one parent many times, and that's why you'll need to check out the schools you're looking at, or what are the requirements if my parents aren't together. And so, with that being said, the custodial parent for 24-25, it's the parent that provides the most support. So if I am paying child support, if I'm giving a large check, but the child doesn't live with me, though I would still fill out the FAFSA. It would be my responsibility. And that's new for 24-25. And so that's the FAFSA. On the institutional side, institutional methodology, both parents are filling out documents. One is on the CSS profile. One is custodial parent A, and the other is a custodial parent, is parent B. So parent A and parent B, two totally separate databases. The answers, the numbers aren't shared with either parent other than what they submit to them, and they can always see what they submit, but we don't show what the other parent can submitted. But at Dartmouth and many need-based schools, many of the very selective need-based schools are looking at both parents. And so that's important to check out the process. So we talk about what is changing, right? So student aid index is a new term we're going to learn about. And other changes are that the FAFSA is being simplified. So remember, 108 to 36 questions. The formula is changing. We're not going to be looking on the federal side for the number of students in college. But what isn't changing? And what isn't changing is on the Cal side. And this was prepared for me by the experts, which is great, at St. Ignatius, because we don't get much into the Cal grant system. But you can see here, and we are going to I'm understanding that this will be emailed out, so you will have this with you. But the Cal Grant A and B, you can see the GPAs and the incomes. So really, it's great that this part isn't changing so that you can see it. We also, I can tell you at Dartmouth, we have many dreamers and undocumented students. And so for California, you have the DREAM Act. And again, if you are undocumented or a dreamer, you'll want to look at the schools that you're applying to see what is the process. At Dartmouth, we're not asking anybody to do a DREAM Act form or FAFSA, but we do have the profile for students, and undocumented and dreamers still can qualify for the same amount of aid. It's just that at Dartmouth, the difference is it's funded by the college because the federal government currently isn't allowing federal aid. So that's the dreamers. And then the great college counselors also put in the different amounts that are out there for this current year for the Cal Grant A and B. So one other topic that if you're an international student, maybe it's worth taking a look, not a U.S. citizen. I talk about dreamers, or undocumented. Dartmouth and many, many selective schools are meeting 100% of demonstrated need of all admitted applicants. So for us, it's if you get in and you, no matter your background, if you're an international student and you're coming from abroad, if you're an undocumented student, if you're a domestic student, as long as you get in, we will fund at 100% of your demonstrated need. And that means you fill out the forms and we will provide enough financial aid to cover your need. Now, you might say that your need is more than what we think when we do the numbers, but so for example, I just talked to a family that was very high income, and they had $70,000 in credit card debt, and they wanted us to include that in the formula. We're not going to include it. Their definition of need was different in that sense, but we don't include credit card debt in the formula, for example. So, but that's a big statement, the 100% of demonstrated need, because schools, that do that tend to give out the most money. So as you're looking at schools, mostly selective schools are doing that. Okay, life happens. And what I mean by this is really important. So for the class of 2027, we're using 2021 taxes. So these are the people who are getting in right now through early decision, through regular decision, all across the country. We're using 2027 taxes. 2021 taxes for the class of 2027. They're graduating in 2027. So the class of 2028, which we're going to be recruiting next year, so that's you if you're sitting here listening and you're a junior, we're going to use your 2022 taxes. Why this is so important is if we're going to use your 2022 taxes, you're going to have those done, hopefully, knock on wood, in the next 3 months. And by having them set in the next 3 months, that will be you can go on the calculators with your 2022 taxes when they're fully updated, and you're going to be able to get, okay, here's my estimate of net price. But sometimes, and a big example of this is COVID, we have seen in 2020 and 2021, we are seeing families that were really impacted by COVID, and whether it was job loss, whether it was death, whether it was health issues, whether it was furloughs, and other reasons where the taxes aren't accurate as much anymore. And so I say that because you need to tell us. You have to fill out the forms correctly. So if you were doing a FAFSA this year and you're your taxes said you made $110,000, you have to put $110,000. But you also need to talk to us. And on our forms, there's many different places that you can give us unique circumstances, like what's going on. Of course, you can also just write us an email or a letter. You can pick up the phone. We'll probably ask you to write us a letter anyways, but we can talk you through it. And all schools are like that. It's not just Dartmouth, where if there is a unique circumstance, there's extra people in your household that aren't showing up on your taxes. There are medical issues. We just need to get an accurate picture of your finances. But you do have to fill it out accurately up front. And then you need to contact the schools. And if you're applying to 10 different schools, you're going to want to contact all 10 schools and say, this is what's going on for us, and give them documentation of the unique circumstances. So I put that in there, and it's really been more and more the last couple of years, the impact of COVID and what we've seen. So that's really important. Okay. The great people in the College Counseling Office have given some questions to get us started in terms of some really, really good questions. And I've put them just on a couple slides. And it says, as you can see here, is the net price calculator accurate now? And so I'm just going to go through these questions really fairly quickly. And if you have more questions, you're putting them in the Q&A. Hopefully, Ashley, Stephanie are moderating, and also will break in, and I can help also. So is the net price calculator accurate? The net price calculator, there's two things about it. One, the school programs it correctly. Two, the applicant or the family who's looking at the school answers the questions accurately. And what do I mean by that? So for us, we're going through, we set our net price calculator up. Each year we put in new costs. We actually go through it and verify that, okay, we're typing in the numbers. This is the answer that we get. This is the scholarship for the family. This is what it's going to cost. So I'm fairly confident that our net price calculator is correct on that side. Where families sometimes are, if there's any questions, they should call the schools they're looking at, because sometimes typing in or assuming different items, you want to make sure all your inputs are correct. So that's going to be really important. But when we say are they accurate now, they're not going to be accurate for 24-25 because, as I said, we're still recruiting the 23-24. Later in the spring, in the summer, they'll transfer to 24-25. Schools, need-based schools that meet 100% of demonstrated need, they're going to be set because for us, we meet that demonstrated need, whether it's federal aid, institutional aid, private aid, it doesn't matter. We still will meet your demonstrated need. Schools that are federal methodology only will need the formula from the Department of Ed before they can update their calculator. So it's something that we need to get through this recruiting cycle, and then schools will flip the switch and be able to say, okay, 24, 25 families, if you're a junior, our calculator is going to be correct. So you just need to wait just a little bit. You see the next question, are CSS profile member schools more predictable for aid now? Again, for schools that you're going to be not understanding exactly what this question is, but the profile is going to be much more in depth than the FAFSA. And so it always has been. And the FAFSA, as we said, is going to have 36 questions. It's only going to look at one parent if the parents aren't together, where the profile, as I said, is going to look for both parents. Again, I would use the calculator to be able to predict the aid that you're going to get and the net price. But the profile does go more in depth. You're going to need the taxes, and it's going to take you a little bit more time than the FAFSA to fill out. Next question is, what is the difference for want versus need? It's such a good question. And that's where I was using my example of somebody who I was working with who had significant credit card debt. They wanted more aid, but their demonstrated need was less. And so we can only give out what demonstrated need is. Most families will want more. And that's a really important thing, is what happens if you say, I think we need $15,000 and you only qualify for $10,000 a year in an example. First of all, it's working with the schools to see, are there any other rocks that we can turn? Is there something different financially? Did we miss something? Did you fill out something incorrectly? So sometimes people put their retirement account in their investments. We don't want that, right? So we want to take that out because that's not included. But it's making sure sometimes if you're like, this is tight, we need to go through this. We'll walk through and talk about how we came up with this number. What's coming from income? What's coming from assets? And try to see, did we miss something? And so, but the want versus the need, sometimes they don't line up. And I know there's another question in here about that we'll get to. So more questions. How do I find out who offers merit and who doesn't? First of all, looking at doing a Google search, but every website will show what scholarships are available, or they'll say we're 100% need-based. Some schools are merit-based only. Some are need-based, like us, only. And there are also schools in the middle that do both. The admissions will give you a merit award, and then you can still be applying for financial aid and get a need-based award. And so how do you find out? Unfortunately, there are lists out there when you Google, but things can change, and it's looking directly on websites to find out what is everything based on. Is there a certain amount of income or asset that does not give any aid? Everything is a formula, and so I like to say if aid is important to you and you're applying to a need-based school, but and you're worried I make too much, it's not going to be worth it. It can't hurt the first year applying for aid. If it's something that you're like, I think it's worth checking out, feel free. Again, it's a formula. And so it's really impacted on what your situation is. Remember, the federal government is changing in 24-25 about the number of students in your family in college, the number of kids in your family in college. So if you have two, the federal formula currently is acknowledging the two and giving an allowance and lowering your EFC, that estimated family contribution. That's going away in 24-25, but institutional methodology schools, it may not be going away for that school you're looking at. So that family that's making a certain amount of money might say it's not worth it. It's worth it the first time to the first year. If you say I'm making 1.8 million, probably not. And if you win Powerball and win 1.8 billion, feel free to donate some to Dartmouth, and we'll put your name on a building. And then you're probably not going to qualify for financial aid. But okay, what are the max limits of loans for a student and parent? That's a really good question. So first-year students who are coming from high school, essentially, or just their first year, they don't have to be coming from high school. They can be coming from working or different scenarios. $5,500 is the maximum federal loan they can take. And some of that can be subsidized, which means the government's picking up the interest while they're in school. Some of it can be unsubsidized, depending, again, on your on the formula and the family finances. Unsubsidized means interest is accruing. You don't have to make payments, but interest is accruing while you're in school. And so that's the max, $5,500 for students. It goes up to $6,500, $7,500 by your fourth year is the maximum you can take. And then when I say that, it's the maximum federal loan on a student's signature. You can still get a private loan from a bank, but the loan limits for the federal loans are $5,500 your first year. A parent currently can get more than that. So there's a term called the cost of attendance, and the cost of attendance is every educational expense that you have that that a student has that allows the student to go to college. So it's tuition, fees, room, so housing, food, books, miscellaneous items. Someone's buying shampoo for a student now. We want that student to have shampoo in college. So miscellaneous personal items, things like that, transportation, all of that is the cost of attendance. And so for easy math, if a school costs $50,000, you have a $10,000 scholarship. We can take $50,000 and subtract the 10. Now you have $40,000 of need. We then can subtract the student loan of $5,500. So that goes down to $34,500. That is, in this example, the maximum the parent could take out. So if the parent says, I don't want to pay out of savings, out of my a payment plan, out of my current salary, I just want a loan from the federal government, you can take a parent plus loan. That's the cost of attendance minus aid. And what is left is what you could take out in a loan. How does the campus deal with blended families, and does it differ from campus to campus? It actually does differ from campus to campus, how everybody is looking at a blended family. One thing I'll say is if we have parents that had a child and they're in this example, let's say they're divorced and both sides get remarried. You may be filling out forms and remember, parent A could be custodial, parent B is non-custodial, and both being remarried, we're not going to look at four sets of income if all four are working. What we would do is we would collect the information and break out parent A and parent B. But again, every school can be different how it handles it. Will the Simplification Act above impact this? Again, filling out the FAFSA, it's only going to be looking at one parent if a family, but if a family is remarried, it would look at both, and you'll be filling that out. And there'll be so much more instruction that's coming out and guidance on handling that on the federal side. This next one's a really good question. And if I have a private company with less than 100 employees, does the FAFSA change for me? So currently, if you have a business that you own and you have less than 100 employees, you don't have to include your business on the FAFSA. In 24-25, that's going to change. and you'll be including your business, if you own a business, on the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. The CSS profile, the form that goes a little bit more in depth, that's used for by most schools, selective schools for need-based aid, that has always looked at business value, but now the government is changing their rules. So that's something to look at. And I think I have one more question, slide of questions here. Is my intuition site more accurate than the net price calculator? These are all really good questions, Ashley and Stephanie, and this is awesome. The My Intuition is not more accurate because it is a broader estimate, and that's why it only takes 3 minutes and 27 seconds to fill out. Net price calculator with your taxes in front of you, as I've been saying, takes more time to fill out, but is definitely more accurate if done correctly. How does 529 plans work if my child is a beneficiary? Really good question. We like 529s because they're there for you to pay for the college. And a couple ways you can work with your 529 provider. And they can pay the college directly. You can work with them on how to do it. They can also pay you if you're getting reimbursed, meaning you paid the college and they're paying you back. You have to keep some good records showing that your kid's in college and that qualifies qualified expenses, but it's really easy to do. And 529 plans are awesome. What is too much to pay for college for a family? This is a really good question, and I think it's timely with the cost of higher ed also, is outcomes. I always talk about outcomes need to be looked at. You know, are students getting jobs? And it's a tough question. It's a good question, but it's a tough one because answering what is too much, everybody is going to be in a different scenario. But somebody with a large income who hasn't saved and isn't in good financial health, paying might be in a different scenario where they really can afford only a little amount compared to somebody else with a lower income, but they've been saving for a little bit, or they qualify for more aid. So, but this is something is to look at outcomes. Are you comfortable with the outcomes of the college? How many people are getting jobs? Where are they getting jobs? Are they going to getting into graduate schools? If that's something that's really important. And that's having a conversation with the admissions office, having it with the financial aid office, like, okay, we're spending $30,000. Talking to it's actually also what used to be called career services when I was in college is now at many schools, like for example, the Center for Professional Development, talking to the on the career side, what is available and making sure that you're comfortable. Our college prices will continue to rise up. So our college price is going to keep rising. I think this has been in the media a lot, and I think it's something that is continuing to be under a microscope, college costs. But I will say this, when we're in an inflationary environment of 8% or more, it's something that we have to look at and expect is going to go up across the country because people who are working at colleges like raises, energy costs are higher, health insurance costs are higher, and there's not many ways to pay for that other than through tuition. And so I always say a 2 to 4% increase is what I would think about each year. I can tell you for both my daughters, the last couple of years, I've always thought, okay, 2 to 4%. If we can stay in that, this is a good thing. So I would also think about that. What are ways to reduce college costs? Another wonderful question. And I think this is a team approach, and the approach can be from the student, has to be part of it, the family, the school. And when I say that, I talk about students can get jobs on campus, and I think that's really important. One, it builds the resume, but two, it's important when we say reducing the cost and cost for family also. The bank of mom and dad may be hopefully for that 2 a.m. pizza in college, the Bank of Mom and Dad hopefully don't have to pay for that. Hopefully that's coming from work. Or, the summer before college, can we come up with a certain amount of money to say, okay, this is going to be books, the student is working or comes in with savings and goes to college with X amount, whether it's $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, and out of that $5,000, books are paid for, or maybe some of the non-direct costs that aren't billed, and looking for different ways to take a look at cutting costs. I think colleges are really trying to come up with different ways. I know that our faculty are working really hard on keeping our book prices lower. Like, where can we get access to free resources, or the library, or so I just say that it's tough to cut college costs, but I think there are ways. And like I said, a student having to come up with a certain amount before going to college, and then saying, okay, $3,000, this is on, books are on you, and the Bank of Mom and Dad is closed for that 2 a.m. pizza, and then working and saving, and it's a great, for students, it's again, not all jobs are non-academic. We, at least at Dartmouth, we have many academic jobs, whether it's working with faculty, whether it's being a drill instructor for languages, and that's unique to Dartmouth, where you're helping people learn a foreign language. But there are non-academic jobs, and that could be working in the library at 10 o'clock at night and pulling out your own book when it's really quiet, or of course everybody knows and remembers of people, if they've gone to college, of working in the dining hall, which I think are the highest paid jobs right now on campus. What do I do if I want? Okay, so this is a great question. If I do not want to sell my asset, but my child wants me to add ED to a campus. Okay, so. As you can tell, I didn't write these questions, but I think this is good. It's a little complicated, but basically you have $500,000 building that you're renting, that you're giving out, and you're getting rent in, and you're putting this on the form. And remember, we can break everything down and say, from income, we're expecting $12,000. From assets, we're expecting $10,000. And you're sitting there saying, we're not going to sell this building. What are our options? And so this is, I used a $500,000, so a $1.5 million example, and now the college is expecting me to pay full price. So we can go through different options of where this is coming from. It is an asset, for example, in this building. We couldn't overlook it, but because that wouldn't be fair and equitable. But what I could say is there are different options out there for you. It may be a student loan that is the way to go. But at least you'll be able to see, and from the calculator, you'll be able to see ahead of time where this fits in. Okay, last piece. Stephanie and Ashley, how are we doing? I know we wanted to keep it under 4 hours tonight. And I just want to show 2 or 3 things, and then if there are other questions. collegecost.ed.gov is the College Affordability and Transparency Center. Some great data on colleges. It's really worth taking a look at. As you can see here, this scorecard, you can compare schools. We've been asked to give data. Some's a little wonky. They're redoing it a little, but if you want to learn about retention rates, like a school that your son or daughter is looking at, and the retention rate is 63%. What does that mean? That means 63% of the class, of the first year class, is coming back the second year. How does that make you feel? Well, for me, that would say, I'm talking to admissions right now saying, where is 37% of the class going? Are they transferring? Are they failing out? Like, what's going on? Or if a graduation rate in 4 years is 67%. Okay, why is that? Is that low? Is that high? Like, depending, a public school, that might be great. A private school, you might say that's a little bit low. So, but you can see about campus security, are students defaulting on loans? Every school that, again, accepts federal money is filling this out. So you get a great way to look about schools, at schools. So finally, here's your homework. Net price calculators, that college navigator that I just showed you. outside scholarships I didn't spend too much time on, but in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, that's 11th grade's worth starting to look. A Google search will get you 1.8 billion different sites to look at, but start talking to people who graduated before you, finding out where are outside scholarships. Here in New England, where I am, I live in Vermont, right over the river from New Hampshire. The Boston Red Sox have a community service scholarship. It's awesome for each school. And so, okay, how do I apply for that? Like, trying to find things out now when you have time to do the research is great. Look for schools that are merit or need based. And then finally, deadlines. Really important to take a look at deadlines. So here's the thing, Ashley and Stephanie, I have been looking at a camera for an hour, and I don't know if everybody's sleeping on the other end, but I think I'm good.
Thank you so much, Dino. This is such great information. And no, people are not sleeping. They're asking really great questions. And so there are a few questions that some families have for you. So I'm going to, Stephanie and I are going to piggyback and read some of these questions.
Great.
The first one is, does FAFSA consider an existing parent plus loan for an older child currently a junior in college when determining the ECE-SAI for the next child starting college in 2024, 2025?
So that is not currently part of the formula, but it's something that you will want to bring up to the college. And it may not qualify in the federal formula, but a school could take that into account, saying, okay, we have these loans that currently in a junior year. So when we're determining it might be 4 years of a parent plus loan at this level, it's definitely something that should be put on a unique circumstance. May not be used, but it's part of the discussion. It won't be part of the federal formula.
Great. Thank you, Dino. The next two, I think, are more Dartmouth specific, so I'll kind of just ask them together.
Great.
You said 100% tuition scholarship for families making $125K or less in income and assets. If anyone owns a home in the Bay Area, it's likely worth a lot, even if they bought it decades ago for much less. How is this factored in?
Okay, so the tuition guarantee is $125,000 or less in typical assets. And we say typical assets, and it's not defined, because a family making $80,000, if they have $3.1 million in assets, that's not typical for $80,000. And they still may qualify for aid, but they're not going to get the tuition guarantee. Our average scholarship at $125,000, our tuition is $59,000. Our average scholarship is $68,000. So at that income level, that income level is $68,000. Or at 125. So I use that as an example of, the assets. Don't panic. If you have a home, I have a sister in San Jose, and, let me just tell you, I am always blown away at the value of homes. So I understand that, but the 100% tuition, don't panic about it. Panic about it if it's a $3.3 million home and your income is $120,000, because that isn't typical that we see. But again, this is a unique circumstance. You may say, we bought this home in 1997 and look what's happened, or in 2005 and look what's happened. There's plenty of spots to tell us your story. The Dartmouth quick calculator asked for home value and mortgage. So the quick calculator will ask for it asks for retirement, because we are getting people who are filling out investments and putting their retirement in. So we're trying to get people to separate it. The FAFSA currently doesn't ask for home value, but the institutional methodology will look at home. So that's why you'll put in your home, you'll put in the home value, and then you'll also put in the mortgage. And how does 529 play in the picture of chances to get merit scholarship or any potential parent plus loans? So I get excited about 529s as a parent. I have two 529s, and I get excited about it because it's a resource that's there for me. And it is, so you can have a 529. You can say, I'm going to take $20,000 out of a 529 this year. We owe 40. I'm going to take $20,000 out of the 529. Even if I have 50,000 in there, That's up to you to decide who you're spending it on and when you're spending it on. You will still be able to get a federal loan from that. So a Parent Plus loan currently is looking at adverse credit. It's not looking at your income. It's looking at have you made your payments? If you're 90 days late on something, they're going to deny you and you're going to need to get that fixed. You're going to try to fix that or get a cosigner. But they're not going to look at the value of a 529. On the merit side, schools are going to be looking at what's meritorious. Like, is it the SATs? Is it the GPA? I said the tuba playing, the soccer playing, whatever it is. If you're a great singer and the school is giving it, that's great. They're not looking at the 529 because it's based on merit. Wow. That was awesome. I haven't been up this late in a while, everybody.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dino. We really appreciate your time and just so much this great informative information, especially with like new changes happening in the next few years. So thank you so much, Dino, for taking the time out of your busy day on the East Coast. So you are
awesome.
Truly appreciated. And thank you, SI families, for joining us tonight.
Awesome. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to SI Counseling Podcast, where we help our students strive to respond courageously to the opportunities and challenges of our time.